towering structure is your city's bulwark against the forces of crime and disorder. It is also known as the Hall of Justice. And in this building is the office of the Public Prosecutor, unrelenting nemesis of all wrongdoers. Let's pay him a visit.
Good morning.
Oh, hello. Glad you're early. Because in a few minutes, you're going to witness the making of tomorrow's headline. Strangely enough, this case involves a death that occurred over a year ago. Let me tell you how it first came to my attention. One evening, as I was leaving this office, if you see my secretary around, tell her I couldn't wait to give her a lift.
Here she is.
Come in.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
I see you're just leaving. Oh, but Mr. Allen, I need your help desperately.
Well, sit down, Mrs.
Redgrave. Mrs. Virgil Redgrave.
Virgil Redgrave, the artist?
Yes, perhaps you should also know I was his housekeeper until a year ago when his first wife passed on. Mr. Allen, someone is trying to murder me.
Murder you?
Murder me, drive me to insanity or suicide, I don't know. But I do know there's some sort of conspiracy against me.
Well, Mrs. Redgrave, do you have any proof of this conspiracy?
Naturally. Why, only last night I dozed off while reading, and before I knew it, the wind. It was blowing through my room. It blew the door open. It practically drove me out of my mind, all that going on. Don't you see? Someone came into my room and opened the window. They did it just to frighten me,
Well,
see?
Mrs. Redgrave,
But, Mr. Allen, that isn't all. There was the flower pot. Just as I left for the market yesterday, a flower pot fell and missed me by just that much. And the day before that, there was the cellar step. And, oh, yes, I mustn't forget the time I was driving along Eagle Highway, and my brakes gave out, and there I was.
Well, Mrs. Redgrave, have you considered that these might be just a series of coincidences?
No, Mr. Allen. The whole thing's a plot against my life.
Well, is there anyone in particular that you suspect?
I suspect them all in that house. My niece Mildred and her husband, and oh, yes, my husband, too. I suspect them all.
You better sit down. Mrs. Redgrave's mass suspicions of everybody certainly didn't lend much conviction to her story.
After all, the whole household couldn't go around throwing flower pots.
I dismissed her as gently as I could, both from my office and my mind.
But it didn't do him any good.
No. 2 days later, Mrs. Redgrave called up and insisted on seeing me at once. Evans and I were admitted by her niece, Mildred Fuller, and taken to Amy's bedroom.
Thank you both for coming. Now I can prove to you that I haven't been imagining things. Just look at this.
That milk looks curdled.
It's been poisoned, and it was meant for me.
You didn't drink any of this.
I was about to, but it just started to curdle. I knew then that something was wrong.
Where'd you get the milk?
In the icebox where I last put it. I'm the only one who drinks milk in this house. Oh, don't you see, Mr. Allen, there is a plot against me.
Virgil?
Yes, come in.
Virgil, you might be interested in knowing that your loving wife has invited the police here.
If Amy feels she has business with the police, Mildred, that's entirely her affair.
Amy's afraid, if you ask me.
Now, what should Amy be afraid of?
Afraid of dying. Dying the same way she did.
What do you know of Christabel's death?
Why, nothing. Nothing.
Ever since the day Christabel was cremated, I felt you've known something, you and your husband both.
That might be Wallace now.
Tell me what you and Wallace know.
Why, nothing.
Hello?
Mildred, this is me, Wallace.
But...
Look, baby, spare the lectures till you come get me. Flat broke. Pick me up at the hotel. Mildred, are you still there?
Is that for me? Hello? That was my husband, wasn't it? Where was he calling me from?
He didn't finish saying.
You're lying.
And you're hurting my wrist.
What's going on out here?
She wouldn't tell me where my husband was calling me from.
I said I didn't know. There's the satchel.
Oh. Where's Mr. Redgrave?
In the studio.
Oh, just a moment, Mr. Redgrave. You, hiding something?
I was just putting away a jar.
Excuse me.
It's special formula of mine. I use it to heighten the color values in my canvases.
That's strong. Strong enough, I'd say, to curdle milk.
You don't mind if we take it along?
Why, no.
Have it analyzed along with the milk.
All right.
There's a jar in the satchel.
She's interesting, isn't she?
Yes, that's Christabel, my husband's first wife. And look how versatile Christabel was. First, Christabel the mother. Then Christabel the musician. And oh yes, Christabel the telegrapher. Telegraphy was Christabel's favorite hobby. Wasn't she a woman of magnificent accomplishments, Mr. Allen?
Mrs. Redgrave, you've been under a tremendous strain. Why don't you try to get some sleep?
Yes, perhaps I'll even dream of Christabel.
Lieutenant Evans and I went directly to the lab. Redgrave's formula, we found out, was a deadly poison. And the same poison was also found in the milk.
But everyone in the house had access to the poison, so it didn't prove very much.
However, I did a little research into Christabel Redgrave's death. Got quite a play in the local papers. This is what I found out. Just before her own death, Christabel's baby had died. On this particular night, Christabel was alone in the playroom. She herself had been quite ill, and her doctor had placed her on a special diet. On that night, Christabel drank a glass of milk. The doctor examined her and declared that Christabel's death was caused by heart failure, brought on by grief. The name of that doctor was Wallace Fuller, Mildred's husband. The day after Christabel Redgrave's body was cremated, Wallace Fuller resigned from the medical profession. Just why he resigned, I'm not sure. But I do know that I now have a murder on my hands, the murder of Christabel Redgrave. We're all going out to the Redgrave estate now. Exactly what we'll find, I'm not sure. But you'd better come along anyway. Miss Fuller, we've come to look around.
Well, of course. Come in. What is this, a charge of the Light Brigade?
Still painting Christabel, are you?
This might prove much more illuminating.
There's your immortal Christabel. Now look at her. Goodbye, Christabel. Goodbye, Christabel. And all your many accomplishments. Telegraphy. No, Virgil. Virgil, no. No, Virgil, no.
Mr. Allen! Mr. Allen, Steve.
No, Virgil, no.
Here.
Too bad you couldn't stay away a little longer.
Are you all right? She wouldn't drink the milk, so you tried a little manual labor, huh?
Mr. Redgrave, I understand the room that Christabel died in is always kept locked. I'd like to have the key, please.
That room hasn't been entered since she died.
That's one reason I'd like to see it now.
There's nothing in that room that could possibly concern this idiotic investigation.
We could have a search warrant over here in 8 minutes flat.
It's one of these. I'd better open it for you.
This time, let's all go together. Thank you very much, Mr. Redgrave. That'll be all for the present.
What do you expect to find in here, anyway?
Oh, reactions.
Hmm?
Look at the effect this room has on Pat.
I feel creepy.
What effect do you think it would have on Christabel Redgrave's murderer?
Oh, I get it. Psychology, huh? New approach.
And this is where the rich and beautiful Christabel Redgrave spent her last night. This could even be the last chair she sat in. And the toys she fondled. And her little boy's playpen.
Hey, wait a minute.
What's the matter?
Did you find something, Steve?
Yes. I think Patricia has just solved the murder of Christabel Redgrave.
Well, what do you know?
Now, if you'll go out and tell the others that we're ready for them.
Yes, sir.
Come in, Mr. Redgrave.
Is this little reunion necessary?
Oh, I won't keep you very long.
But don't count on it.
Do you mind?
No. The devil's this all about anyway?
I think it's about time we found out what's been going on here.
Well, as you know, I was called to this house by Mrs. Redgrave. But what started out to be the case of a frightened woman has turned into an investigation of murder.
Murder?
Is that surprising to you two?
I think we've all surmised that Christabel's death wasn't a natural one.
Wallace, be quiet.
And by the same token, you all had something to gain by Christabel's death. You inherited a fortune, you married a millionaire, and you two now have a wealthy aunt. Christabel was murdered for one of those reasons. Let's start with you, Mrs. Redgrave.
Me? Why, you can't suspect me.
Can't we, Aunt Amy?
Why start with me? Find the person who poisoned my milk, why don't you?
I believe I have, Mrs. Redgrave. You poisoned it yourself.
How preposterous. Why should I?
It was your only way of finally convincing me of your so-called danger in this house. You did it to bring me here.
Very well, so it's true. But how about the open window in my bedroom? How about the falling flower pot? How about the broken cellar step and the defective brakes on my car? Did I invent those situations, too?
I don't know. Perhaps they just happened, as accidents will. But what made them seem like a plot against your life, Mrs. Redgrave, could very easily be the workings of a guilty conscience.
Well, if it's a guilty conscience you're seeking, look around you. Yes, just look around you. Search her conscience, why don't you? Or his. And his. Yes, and his. Why does he go on painting her portrait like a madman day after day after day? Is he trying to bring back to life the woman he loved? Or the woman he murdered?
Oh, Amy, quit it. We've had enough of your nonsense.
Not quite enough, Dr. Fuller. Mrs. Redgrave is right. There are a lot of guilty consciences around here. Suppose you tell us, Doctor, for instance, why you resigned from the medical profession shortly after Christabel's death.
I'll answer that. Amy gave us both enough money so that Wallace could quit the profession.
That's only part of it.
Wallace, be quiet.
Let me alone, Mildred.
You knew when you signed the death certificate that Christabel had been murdered, didn't you?
Oh, I didn't know then. It looked like simple heart failure, believe me.
When did you change your mind?
A few days after her body was cremated, I had to come back into this room for an instrument I'd left behind. It was then that I noticed this.
Huh. Part of the carpet's eaten away.
As Christabel's body fell to the floor, she knocked over a glass of milk. But milk alone doesn't corrode a rug.
No, but some poisons would.
Why didn't you call the police?
I wasn't feeling up to the red tape of an investigation. So I did the next best thing. I made a graceful exit from my profession.
Did you tell your wife what you had found?
For all I knew, she might have been the one who murdered Christabel.
So that explains your lonely, drunken escapades in sordid hotel rooms. You thought you were married to a murderess. Or was it that you killed Christabel yourself?
Save your breath, Mrs. Fuller. I know who murdered Christabel Redgrave. The answer has been right in this very room ever since the night she died. And here it is. On the night Christabel died, she sat in this chair by the playpen. Someone brought her a glass of milk, poisoned milk. That someone could have been you, her housekeeper, you, her husband, you, her doctor, or you, her housekeeper's niece. Whoever it was left Christabel alone. She drank part of the milk and immediately became deathly ill. She knew she had been poisoned. She also knew who did it. Now, we're all aware that Christabel had a hobby, telegraphy. Her one chance to avenge her death in the few seconds she had left was to spell out her murderer's name, using the beads on the playpen as her telegraph. One bead for a dot, two together for a dash. And then, the name of her murderer spelled out, Christabel Redgrave died. At this very moment, these beads still spell out the name of Christabel's murderer.
Oh, no, you don't. Let me go. Let me go. Oh, you should have let me take it. I paid enough for killing Christabel already. Oh,
I've learned the Morse code myself. These beads spell nothing.
Yes, Mr. Redgrave, I know. In a word provided by Lieutenant Evans, psychology. It's a useful weapon when your public prosecutor finds himself out on a limb. Come back and visit us again soon. We'll try to close another case for you.